Hi, welcome back to another Comp 110 video. Today we're going to talk about how you can use functions kind of like variables and pass functions as arguments into other functions and even give them types. So far in Comp 110 we've been talking about variables, and we know that every variable we declare in our program has to have a type. We've also been talking about functions, and we've described those functions based on the types of variables that they take in as parameters and the return type of the function, whether it's void, it doesn't return anything, or whether it returns a number, string, boolean, or some other kind of a variable. We can actually give functions types too. So if we want to use functions as variables, we have to give them a type, because every variable needs a type. So how do we type a function? Well, what we just said. A function's type is the type of things that it takes in as parameters and its return type. So we're going to talk about how to create a functional interface, which is just another way of saying a type for a function. Alright, so Halloween is coming up, so today we're going to talk about trick-or-treating, everyone's favorite part of October. And what happens when you go trick-or-treating? Well, we figured at first, you're really excited about Halloween, and you're going out, you're getting candy, and you have a really positive response to everything. So for like the first half of your trick-or-treating experience, you are really happy about everything you're getting, and you're really positive. And then as the night goes on, you start to get tired, and you start to get more picky about what candy you've gotten, because you've already gotten 18 pretzel bags. So you start to have more negative or like sad responses to people when they give you candy or pretzels. So we're going to model that in our program today. And the thing that we're going to make an interface for is a response function. So we want to say that we want to define a type of function that's going to take in a string that's the name of a kind of candy, and return another string that's the response we want to give to that candy. So let's make an interface for this response. So the first step in making a functional interface is just the word interface. And this keyword lets TypeScript know that we're about to make an interface. So after the keyword interface, we want to give this interface a name. So this is like the name of the type that we're giving to the function. So we're just going to say response, and just like classes, interfaces start with a capital letter. So we've got interface response, and we're going to open curly braces from there. And inside that set of curly braces, we're going to have one line that defines the type of function. And so we said, how do you define a type of a function? With the type of its parameters and its return type. So just like when you're writing parameters in a function declaration, we're going to put parameters inside a set of parentheses here. So we'll open a set of parentheses, and then we said we want all response functions to take in a string that is the type of candy. So we'll give it one parameter that's going to be named candy and be of type string. And that's all the parameters that we need. And so after our closing parentheses, we're going to put another colon and say that the return type of this function is string as well. So great, now we've defined an interface for functions that take in a string and return a string. And we've called that interface response. Awesome, so now let's write some functions that implement this interface. And I told you that this video was going to be about how we can use functions kind of like we use variables. So you know how we declare variables with a let keyword? Turns out you can also do that with functions. If you want to give the function a specific type, we can declare them just like we do variables. So we'll say, first let's make a happy response. So we'll say let happy response be a variable that's of type response. So we've just told TypeScript that happy response is going to be a function that takes in a string and returns a string. And just like we do with variables, we can initialize it with the equals operator to a function. And we can just write the word function here. And we don't have to give it a name, because we already gave it a name after the let keyword. So we can just say function and then open parentheses. And our function's going to take in candy, which is a string. And our return type is going to be string. And we have to, our parameter we have to have one parameter that's a string, and our return type has to be a string, because that's what we defined in our response interface. If we got those wrong, then TypeScript would give us an error saying, you told me this was going to be a response, but you haven't correctly given me a function that fills all the requirements of the response interface. Alright, so now we can open a set of curly braces and treat this just like any other function. So what do we want our happy response to do? Well, we want it to return some kind of pleasant message about the candy that we got. So we're gonna return, yay, I love whatever type of candy it is. So we'll just say return this string, yay, I love, and then we'll concatenate onto that string the name of the type of candy that got passed in. So if we pass in Reese's as the candy, our function will return, yay, I love Reese's. Awesome. Now we've got our happy response. Let's make a not so good response. Let's make a sad response variable as well. So we're going to follow the same pattern and say let sad response be of type response. And we'll initialize it to a function that also takes in a string for the type of candy and returns a string. And inside that function, we're going to say, ew, nobody likes whatever type of candy that it is. So if we pass in Hershey's to this function, we should get back the string, ew, nobody likes Hershey's, our sad response.
Okay, now let's go ahead and make a function that can take in our variables or functions of type response. So let's make a function called respond. So this is normal, so it's just function respond. And for our parameters for this function, let's go ahead and say we're going to have one parameter called response, that's going to be of type response, and then one parameter that's going to be candy, that's of type string. So what this function is going to do is it's going to call whatever function's passed in with that candy string. So the return type is just going to be void. So we close our parentheses, put that colon, void, and add our brackets, and we go inside this function. So inside the respond function, all we're going to do is a print statement. We just want to print whatever response is called. So we'll say print, response, parentheses, candy. So in this way, whatever arguments passed in that then will be assigned to the name of response will be called with candy as the argument. Great, so let's go ahead and try this function. So let's call response, passing in happy response and Reese's. So right here it says, yay, I love Reese's. So that shows how we pass it in and a function can work as a variable. Now you can also reassign the name of a variable. So if we wanted to say, let joyous response be response and set that equal to happy response, now we can call respond with joyous response and Reese's and the same thing happens. Great, so let's go ahead and make a main function that's going to do something in particular. We want to create this scenario of trick-or-treating. So let's think, if we're going to make a scenario of trick-or-treating, let's go ahead and make an array of candies that you're going to receive throughout the night. And then you get a little less excited about candy as you go along. So let's say we want to say for the first half of getting candies, you'll have a joyous response, and the second half, you'll have a sad response. So how do we do this? Okay, let's make a main function. So function main, have no parameters, and the return type will be void. And then we'll go ahead and open up our bracket and go inside this function. Well, to start off, let's make that candy array. So let candies be an array of strings, and then we'll put the equal sign, and then we can go ahead and fill those brackets that represent that array. So we have this array full of candies now. So let's go ahead and make a while loop that will call a joyous response for the first half of the array, and then sad response for the second half. So first part of a while loop is that counter. So let I be a number and set it equal to 0. And then we're going to use that keyword while, and let's keep doing this for as long as the candy array. So while I is less than candies.length, we're going to go inside our while loop, and then we're going to ask if I is less than candies divided by 2. So if you're still in the first half of getting your candies for the night, we're going to call respond, passing in joyous response, because it's still the first half of the night and you're still grateful, and the ith candy of the candy array. So candy's I. Else, we're going to call respond with sad response and still the ith candy of the array. And then remember, you always want to increment your counter, so go ahead and say I++, and we can leave our while loop. Great, so let's go ahead and call main and see what happens. As you can see, we're excited about our Smarties and we're excited about our Reese's, but then towards the end of the night we start getting a little sad and lollipops aren't very cool to us anymore. So that's what happens when we call functions, passing in functions as parameters. So we hope you have a sweet Halloween now that you know how to use functions as variables and pass them into other functions.
And a fun fact for this video is that lollipop is the longest word in the English language that you type with one hand on your keyboard. Try it out. So happy Halloween and see you next video.
See ya!